Imagine waking up to find your street half empty, houses abandoned, shops shuttered, and silence where laughter once echoed. It sounds like a scene from a dystopian film, yet experts warn it could become the reality for half of the UK by 2026. Rising costs, job shifts, climate risks, and migration trends are reshaping the nation faster than ever before. What's driving people away from a country once seen as one of the world's most stable places to live? Stay tuned, because the reasons behind this quiet exodus reveal a truth far more unsettling and far more real than most realize. Number 1. The Great Migration Abroad. Across the United Kingdom, a quiet but powerful shift is underway. People are leaving. Thousands of citizens are packing their bags, not because of fleeting dreams, but because of pressing realities. Economic pressure, the rising cost of living, and limited opportunities have pushed many to consider life elsewhere. The idea of a better life abroad has evolved from a fantasy into a practical escape plan for families and professionals alike. Data from recent migration reports show a consistent rise in relocation applications, with destinations like Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe leading the list. For many, it's not about seeking luxury, it's about survival and stability. They're searching for a place where their income stretches further, where public services work efficiently, and where owning a home doesn't feel like an impossible dream. Behind these moves lies a complex blend of frustration and hope. The UK's housing crisis, shrinking job opportunities, and political uncertainty have made younger generations feel disconnected from their future at home. Surveys reveal that a growing number of Britons under 35 are considering permanent migration within the next few years. They cite reasons such as affordable housing, healthcare accessibility, and work-life balance as the primary motivators. Meanwhile, retirees are also looking overseas for warmth and lower living costs, turning coastal towns into quiet reminders of what used to be vibrant communities. As one area empties, local economies weaken, and services disappear, further accelerating the exodus. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle that leaves towns hollowed out and aging. This migration wave paints a sobering picture of change. By 2026, analysts predict that nearly half of the UK could experience significant population decline, particularly in rural and coastal regions. Empty homes, shuttered shops, and silent high streets may become more common sights. It's not a dramatic overnight collapse, but a gradual fading of once bustling communities. The most striking aspect isn't just the number of people leaving, but the reasons driving them away, a longing for fairness, opportunity, and balance that many feel has slipped beyond reach within their homeland. The Great Migration Abroad isn't a trend. It's a statement of what people need to live with dignity and hope. Number 2. Government austerity and service cuts. Over the past decade, the UK has witnessed a steady tightening of government spending, and the effects are rippling through everyday life. Austerity measures, once introduced as temporary solutions, have become long-term policies affecting nearly every public service. Hospitals are understaffed, schools are closing in smaller towns, and transportation links are vanishing from rural maps. For many citizens, the decline in public infrastructure feels personal. Waiting months for a medical appointment or commuting hours to access basic services has become the new normal. These issues might sound bureaucratic on paper, but in reality, they define where people choose to live. When communities lose essential services, they lose people too. Families migrate toward larger cities where services remain functional, leaving smaller towns to fade into silence. The consequences of these cuts go beyond inconvenience. They reshape the nation's demographic landscape. A village that loses its school loses its young families. When that same area loses its hospital, it loses the elderly who can no longer rely on nearby care. This chain reaction leaves behind hollow regions dominated by boarded-up shops and for-sale signs. Local businesses that once thrived on community presence begin to collapse. A study by the Institute for Fiscal Studies found that public spending per person in some rural counties has fallen by more than 25% since 2010. A staggering decline that underlines why populations are shrinking outside metropolitan zones. The once close relationship between citizens and their local institutions has eroded, replaced by frustration and resignation. This growing imbalance is pushing the UK toward an urban-rural divide that could redefine the country by 2026. As major cities like London, Manchester, and Birmingham absorb those fleeing, decaying infrastructure, the countryside grows emptier. The cost of recovery rises with every year of neglect, and communities that lose momentum rarely regain it. What remains is a stark reminder that when a government withdraws its support, it's not just budgets that shrink, it's entire ways of life. The people leaving aren't abandoning their homes out of preference. They're escaping the slow collapse of public trust and opportunity. Number 3. Job market shifts and automation. Across the UK, the job landscape is changing faster than many communities can adapt. Automation and artificial intelligence are transforming how industries operate, from manufacturing to customer service. Machines and algorithms now complete tasks once handled by people, reducing the demand for traditional labor. For workers in smaller towns, this shift means more than just job loss. It represents the disappearance of entire career paths. Factories that once employed thousands now run with a fraction of that workforce, and retail chains are turning towards self-checkout systems. The economic ripples are enormous. When jobs vanish, spending power declines, and local businesses suffer. The effects are most visible in areas that relied heavily on single industries, where new opportunities are rare and retraining options remain limited. The rise of remote and tech-based employment has also contributed to this uneven transformation. While cities attract high-paying digital jobs, smaller towns struggle to compete. Many skilled workers relocate to urban hubs or move abroad, seeking roles in emerging sectors like data analysis, renewable energy, and software development. Those left behind often face stagnant wages and unstable part-time work. According to recent reports, nearly 40% of current UK jobs face some level of automation risk by 2030, with the manufacturing and transport sectors at the top of the list. The shift creates a widening gap between regions adapting to technology and those being left behind. Without government intervention or private investment in digital infrastructure, this divide will continue to grow, making certain areas economically unsustainable. The social consequences are equally severe. Unemployment doesn't just affect income, it erodes community identity. Towns once proud of their industries now face uncertainty and population decline. Young people, unable to find suitable work, migrate to cities or overseas, leaving behind aging populations and empty high streets. As automation accelerates, the challenge isn't merely technological, it's human. The question is no longer whether machines will replace workers, but whether society can create new spaces where displaced people can rebuild their futures. Without such adaptation, the march of automation could leave half the UK not just jobless, but empty of purpose and people alike. Number 4. Climate change and flood risk zones. The impact of climate change on the United Kingdom is becoming impossible to ignore. Rising sea levels, frequent storms, and unpredictable weather patterns are reshaping the landscape and threatening thousands of homes. Low-lying coastal areas, once known for their beauty and tourism, are now being reclassified as high-risk flood zones. For residents, the implications are devastating. Properties lose value, insurance premiums skyrocket, and in some regions, coverage becomes unavailable altogether. Families who have lived in these areas for generations are being forced to move, not because they want to, but because they can no longer afford to stay. By 2026, experts warn that significant portions of eastern and southern England could face recurring flood damage, turning thriving communities into deserted floodplains. Beyond direct flooding, the secondary effects of climate change are equally concerning. Agricultural regions are seeing changes in crop yields due to shifting rainfall patterns, while heat waves are placing new pressures on infrastructure never built for extreme temperatures. As environmental conditions worsen, the cost of maintaining roads, utilities, and housing in vulnerable regions continues to climb. Local councils struggle to keep up with repairs, leaving entire neighborhoods neglected. Over time, the cost of rebuilding outweighs the value of staying, driving both individuals and businesses to relocate inland or abroad. Researchers estimate that nearly 1.5 million homes in the UK could be at significant risk of flooding within the next few years, signaling not just environmental damage, but a massive wave of displacement. This environmental crisis is transforming the UK's population map. Towns along rivers and coastlines are slowly emptying, while inland regions become more crowded. It's a quiet migration driven not by economics or politics, but by the raw force of nature. The emotional toll is immense, losing not only homes, but entire histories rooted in place. Climate change is no longer a distant concern discussed in global summits. It's a daily reality pushing citizens away from once safe communities. If these patterns continue unchecked, the UK could witness an environmental evacuation, a slow retreat from the very landscapes that once defined its identity. Number 5. Housing crisis and overpricing. The housing crisis in the United Kingdom has evolved into one of the most pressing reasons why so many people are leaving or planning to leave the country. For decades, property prices have surged far beyond the reach of the average worker. The dream of owning a home has turned into a distant fantasy for millions, particularly younger generations. In many regions, the average house price exceeds 10 times the average salary, making traditional routes to ownership nearly impossible. Rising rents compound the problem, with tenants spending over half of their income just to secure modest accommodations. This imbalance has created a society where people work tirelessly, yet remain unable to achieve even the most basic financial stability. As frustration grows, many are choosing to start over abroad, where housing costs align more realistically with earnings. The issue extends beyond affordability. It's structural. A lack of new housing developments, restrictive zoning laws, and property speculation have turned real estate into an investment vehicle rather than a human necessity. Wealthy investors and overseas buyers continue to acquire properties that often remain unoccupied, while ordinary citizens face relentless competition for limited options. In urban centers, luxury apartments rise skyward as social housing projects stagnate. Meanwhile, rural communities experience depopulation because residents can no longer afford to remain close to where they grew up. Homelessness rates are climbing, and entire families are forced into temporary accommodation for years at a time. The housing market, once a symbol of opportunity, now represents inequality and despair. The social consequences of this crisis are far-reaching. Without affordable housing, young professionals delay starting families, local economies lose workers, and communities fracture. The widening gap between property owners and renters deepens social divisions, fueling resentment and disconnection. Analysts predict that by 2026, if no major reforms occur, vast numbers of people will continue migrating toward countries offering more attainable housing. What's unfolding is not simply a market imbalance, it's a transformation of national identity. When homes become unreachable, hope follows them out the door, leaving behind empty neighborhoods that once thrived on belonging and stability. Number 6. Immigration outflow and visa restrictions. Since the implementation of stricter post-Brexit immigration policies, the United Kingdom has experienced a noticeable outflow of both foreign workers and British citizens with international ambitions. The once diverse labour force that kept essential industries functioning is gradually thinning out. Skilled professionals, students, and healthcare workers, who once viewed the UK as a land of opportunity, now face complex visa hurdles and reduced incentives to stay. Many foreign nationals have returned to their home countries or relocated to places offering friendlier immigration systems. This shift has created severe gaps in key sectors such as agriculture, hospitality, and healthcare. The NHS, already under pressure, has reported mounting staffing shortages as overseas nurses and doctors find it increasingly difficult to renew their visas or meet new requirements. This growing outflow of talent is not just a political issue, it's an economic one. The UK's workforce is shrinking, productivity is declining, and the demand for services remains high. At the same time, young British professionals are looking outward, seeking opportunities in nations like Germany, Australia, and Canada, where work visas and living conditions appear more stable. Surveys suggest that many now view emigration as the only realistic route to upward mobility. The combined effect of restricted immigration and rising emigration is a double drain. Fewer people arriving, and more people leaving. Towns that once thrived on multicultural energy are losing their vibrancy, while universities face declining international enrollments that strain their budgets and local economies. These population shifts create a ripple effect that could leave portions of the UK hollow by 2026. Without a steady flow of new residents, communities struggle to sustain schools, healthcare services, and small businesses. The cultural diversity that once fueled innovation and connection begins to fade, replaced by stagnation and isolation. Economists warn that reversing this decline will require not just relaxed visa laws but a complete rethinking of how the country attracts and retains global talent. Without decisive change, the UK risks becoming a nation of closed borders and empty towns, where opportunity has quietly relocated elsewhere. Number 7. Aging population. The UK is steadily becoming an aging nation, with more citizens entering retirement than joining the workforce. Advances in healthcare and lifestyle improvements have extended life expectancy, but this longevity comes with new challenges. As the elderly population grows, younger generations are struggling to support the weight of an expanding welfare and healthcare system. Entire regions, particularly coastal and rural areas, are transforming into retirement zones where the median age continues to climb. These areas, once vibrant with schools and small businesses, now face dwindling energy as younger residents move to cities or abroad in search of opportunity. The shift may seem gradual, yet its impact is profound. Towns with fewer working-age adults lose their economic vitality, causing a slow but visible population decline. An aging society also means a shrinking labor pool. Essential industries from construction to caregiving are struggling to find enough workers to meet demand. The imbalance places immense pressure on public services, leading to longer wait times and fewer resources for everyone. According to demographic projections, by 2026, nearly 25% of the UK population will be aged 65 or older, marking one of the most dramatic age shifts in modern history. With fewer taxpayers contributing and more retirees depending on pensions and care, the financial strain grows each year. Many young people, facing heavy tax burdens and limited job prospects, feel compelled to leave for countries with stronger growth opportunities. This further accelerates the demographic imbalance, creating communities that slowly lose their working core. The emotional dimension of this trend is equally striking. As younger families leave, elderly residents are often left behind, isolated in communities that no longer resemble what they once were. Schools close, local shops disappear, and a quiet stillness replaces the rhythm of daily life. It's not merely a matter of numbers, it's the fading heartbeat of small-town Britain. Without strategic planning to balance this demographic divide, the aging population could turn vast parts of the country into silent retirement zones, echoing with memories of generations that have moved on. Number 8. Remote work revolution. The remote work revolution has fundamentally changed how people live and where they choose to live. What began as a temporary pandemic necessity has evolved into a permanent shift in the global workforce. Millions of UK professionals now work from home, free from the daily commute and the high costs of city living. While this flexibility sounds ideal, it's transforming the population map in unexpected ways. Many remote workers are relocating abroad to countries offering lower living expenses and better quality of life, while others are leaving smaller UK towns for larger hubs with stronger digital infrastructure. The result is a growing imbalance. Cities either become crowded with digital nomads or eerily empty as office spaces shut down and local businesses lose foot traffic. The economic ripple effect of this transformation is massive. Office closures lead to fewer commuters, and fewer commuters mean declining revenue for nearby shops, cafes, and public transport systems. Landlords struggle to fill commercial properties, while councils lose vital business tax income. At the same time, remote workers who move to cheaper regions often spend less locally, as much of their work and consumption occurs online. Surveys from 2025 reveal that over 30% of the UK workforce operates remotely at least part-time, a trend showing no signs of slowing down. This decentralization is widening the gap between digitally advanced cities and those lagging behind. Regions without fast internet or co-working hubs risk economic stagnation, making them less attractive to both residents and investors. Socially, remote work is also reshaping communities. Without the shared structure of office life, isolation and disconnection are rising concerns. Smaller towns lose young talent, and the once busy centers of collaboration fall silent. Even as technology connects people across borders, it often disconnects them locally. The shift towards flexible work has undeniably improved freedom for many, yet it's also hollowing out traditional communities that thrived on daily human interaction. By 2026, the remote work revolution could leave portions of the UK's urban landscape underpopulated not through crisis, but through quiet choice, as people redefine where and how they want to belong. Number 9. The decline of rural infrastructure. Across much of rural Britain, communities are witnessing a gradual erosion of the systems that once kept them thriving. The decline of rural infrastructure has become a silent force driving people away. Bus routes are being cut, post offices are closing, and access to essential services like healthcare and banking is shrinking. For residents in small towns and villages, these aren't minor inconveniences, they're signs of abandonment. A simple trip to a hospital or grocery store can now mean traveling hours, a reality that pushes families toward urban centers where life feels more sustainable. This deterioration creates a loop of decline. As services disappear, populations drop, and as populations drop, more services close. What remains are empty streets, shuttered buildings, and a fading sense of community that once defined rural Britain. The loss of infrastructure also has profound economic consequences. Businesses struggle to survive without reliable transport links or internet connectivity, while young professionals see little reason to stay in areas that can't support modern living. Farmers face logistical challenges in distributing goods, and remote workers battle poor broadband that limits opportunity. A report by the Rural Services Network found that over half of UK villages now lack daily public transport, cutting them off from regional job markets and essential amenities. These gaps in accessibility deepen inequality between rural and urban populations, reinforcing the perception that countryside living is no longer practical. Without government intervention or local investment, these regions risk becoming ghost towns by 2026, picturesque yet uninhabited. Beyond the numbers lies an emotional toll. Older residents, unable to relocate, watch their lifelong homes lose vitality. Young families move away, leaving schools half empty and community halls unused. The decline is rarely dramatic but painfully steady, unfolding one closure at a time. The once cherished image of rural life, quiet, scenic, and connected by strong community bonds, is giving way to isolation and decay. If the UK continues to overlook the infrastructure needs of its countryside, it won't just lose population, it will lose a piece of its identity. The heart of rural Britain is beating weaker each year, and without renewal, it may soon fall silent. Number 10. Rising cost of living. The rising cost of living has become one of the most immediate and visible pressures driving people out of the United Kingdom. From soaring food prices to unmanageable energy bills, daily life has become increasingly unaffordable for millions. Families that once lived comfortably now struggle to cover essentials, with wages failing to keep pace with inflation. Reports show that the average household spends over 40% of its income on basic needs such as rent, transport, and utilities. For many, that leaves little room for savings or any sense of financial security. The situation is particularly harsh for those in cities where housing, childcare, and transportation costs are highest. This growing financial strain is pushing people to downsize, relocate, or even emigrate entirely in search of stability. The concept of the cost of living crisis is no longer a headline, it's a lived reality. This financial squeeze has a cascading impact across every aspect of society. Small businesses face reduced spending from struggling consumers, while public services see increased demand from those seeking support. Energy price fluctuations, coupled with post-Brexit trade adjustments, have compounded the problem, making essentials more expensive to produce and distribute. Rural communities, often reliant on car travel and costly heating, are hit especially hard. The result is a widening gap between survival and comfort, where even middle-income earners feel the pressure. The government's relief efforts and wage adjustments have failed to offset the relentless inflationary trend. Surveys indicate that 1 in 3 Britons is now considering relocating to cheaper countries in Europe or beyond, illustrating just how deeply this issue affects daily life. At its core, the cost of living crisis isn't only about money. It's about dignity and hope. When people must choose between heating their homes and feeding their families, a sense of belonging begins to erode. Communities fragment as people move away in search of affordability, leaving behind vacant homes and closed shops. By 2026, if inflation remains unchecked, large portions of the UK could see population decline, not through natural disaster or policy failure, but through quiet financial exhaustion. The rising cost of living isn't just draining wallets, it's emptying the nation itself. The possibility that half of the UK could be empty by 2026 isn't born from a single crisis, it's the result of many forces converging at once, from the crushing cost of living to vanishing jobs, an aging population, and the growing impact of climate change. The nation is shifting in ways few could have predicted. Towns that once thrived with industry and culture are now facing decline, while others struggle to adapt to a future defined by technology and inequality. This isn't simply a story of people leaving, it's a reflection of how deeply everyday life is changing. The patterns shaping this transformation reveal an uncomfortable truth. When opportunity fades, people follow. Yet within this change lies a lesson. The choices made today by leaders, communities, and individuals will determine whether the UK rebuilds or retreats. The country still holds the potential to reinvent itself, but only if the causes of this silent migration are acknowledged and addressed. Every statistic in this story represents real lives, real families, and real futures on the move. The question now is not whether the UK can survive these shifts, but how it will choose to respond to them. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden forces reshaping Britain, hit the like button and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of global and social change. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you stay or would you go? And don't forget to check out our next video for more insights into the future shaping our world.